everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering one of DC's biggest theatrical hits, the Wonder Woman movie.
This very long-awaited movie stars Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, an Amazonian princess who, after hearing of a war affecting America from plane wreck pilot Steve Trevor, travels away from her home for the first time to help out and end the war once and for all.
Yep.
This movie was awesome!
And it took long enough for it to be made, because I remember people were asking for years for a Wonder Woman movie and years for a Justice League movie. At least Wonder Woman was great.
And it took just as long for us to make a podcast.
Right.
I don't know why we haven't made this podcast sooner, because we were just geeking out and fangirling and just crazy excited when we saw it. We were so excited we watched it not once but twice in a row.
Right.
And then we took this long to make a podcast. So sorry, Wonder Woman. Sorry, Gal Gadot. Finally.
And the only time we actually covered it previously was like early on our channel when we covered epic themes from animation or in movies, and we covered the Wonder Woman theme that's played in there during some of the action scenes.
Right, which we can't play now in fear of obtaining a copyright strike.
Right.
So we will attach as a card that podcast so you can click on it and hear our countdown if you haven't heard it already.
Right. So, like I said, it took so long to make this, but at least it was worth the wait, because every aspect of the movie was great. From the acting, the actor choices, the story, the special effects. Everything about it was fantastic.
Yes, definitely.
Plus, they're making a sequel called Wonder Woman 1984, I think, and then next year.
Yes, so awesomely anticipating that. So, before we even start talking about the movie, we'll talk about briefly the casting. And remember, casting was an uproar because they had these different actresses that they were considering who were varied. They were very varied as far as looks, as far as acting ability, and length they've been actors.
Yeah, could they perform the action scenes well in the fighting moves?
Right. And they had one good choice, in addition to Gal Gadot, whom we really didn't know whom she was. I should have, because one, she was a model that, I think for Chanel, if I'm not mistaken. And then she was in something else that we should have remembered from. We didn't. We're sorry. But the point is, they had her, and then they had the one who played Thor's friend in the original Thor movie.
Oh, in the first Thor movie, right? Yeah.
She was one of the four friends.
I think it was Sif.
Yes.
I think it was her.
And she's awesome and amazing and terrific and beautiful. And I thought she would be perfect, which she probably would have been really great. And then they had someone else I really wasn't familiar with. And then they also had a variance of people from different countries. But Gal Gadot, we didn't know how she would do. When we saw her, of course, we said she's beautiful. The costume was great. They kept showing it with a bronze costume and confusing everyone.
Right, and that was just for the set photos and for the movie and stuff. And then when you get to the actual movie, it was gold. So either they digitally altered the color, or they just had just for the set pictures for doing the advertising.
Right, it was red, white, and red, like you said, red,
white,
blue,
and
and gold. Right.
Yeah.
But in the pictures, it was all bronze, and everyone was confused. Like, why is she wearing bronze? And like you said, it was to keep confidentiality, which worked great.
Right.
And when we saw the movie, and we saw her and her performance, and like you said, the writing and everything, it worked out perfectly. And then on top of that, she's a former Israeli soldier. She has martial arts training. She's very intelligent. She's a family girl, and her personality off camera just made it absolutely Gal Gadot the most wonderful choice they could have made. Right.
And the other casting they got, like for Steve Trevor, they had Chris Pine.
Yes, Chris Pine. We love Chris Pine.
Right. And see him in lots of other movies, but probably teens will probably know him as
one of Rascal's favorites
is Jack Frost from Rise of the Guardians.
The most deep-voiced kid I've ever heard in animation history.
Right.
Even deeper than the ones on My Hero Academia.
Yeah, it's like, it made sense when you heard how old he was supposed to be. But
he
played
was fantastic as Steve Trevor.
Right, because I know in some versions they probably wouldn't have had him as such a big focus, because I know that they were attempting to make sure, both of them had equal time on screen. It's still Wonder Woman movie where they weren't going to shift it to Steve Trevor, make it his movie.
Right.
They had to keep it on her, but he is the one that helped start out the plot.
Right.
You see a little about Wonder Woman, how she grew up, when she was a child, who trained her. When the island was being invaded a few times, this is why they have banned men from the island. How that rule started up, and how she was created, and all the mythology and stuff centers around the Amazons. And then, of course, when he comes around and tells them, how he got crashed there before they sent him off, and why she wanted to, help him stop the war, because she thought it was the cause of the so-called God of War.
Right.
Right. And that was the cause of all the conflict and stuff, and that's why it was taken
Ares.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and she thought it was him, so that's why she was going over there to stop, and supposed to end all the war in all the world. Like, if only it were that easy.
Right, exactly. Now, in the original series that came on television, Steve Trevor was a major who was her boss, and she worked under him as his executive secretary and his assistant. And I'm glad, although for that time that was a great story, it worked terrifically, I'm really glad that they didn't make that the version of Steve Trevor this time. He had another female who was his girl Friday, who was really terrific in the movie also. And she was the one who was his assistant and his executive secretary.
Right.
And she was just, Wonder Woman was what she was supposed to be. So I'm really glad they went that route.
Right.
And, yes, Chris Pine was terrific. He, he's great in the action sequences. He's great in the sequences that had humor. Right. He was just wonderful. And I don't know if he's going to be on 1984. It would seem he wouldn't be, because of the time period the first movie took place.
Right.
If he is in it, he will be very, very elderly.
Right.
So that's one drawback of having him in the first movies, that we don't get to see him be wonderful in the second.
Right. And there are rumors that he could appear in it because of how the movie ended. You assume that, okay, he probably won't be in it. But there are rumors that he's probably going to be in it, either maybe through, there's some flashbacks maybe they show, or maybe they he's found again and it's still present time, and they can explain how that happened.
This is us.
Right. Right, where they explain how he came back or something. So, and then they'll have new villains, show up, because they actually did have two major villains, and the one she was actually looking for was there, but he wasn't the cause of all the conflict in the world, just he just helped it along.
Right.
And it kind of had this bit of an underlying message about, when it comes to the themes like this, and we understand that this is what happened during this time period, and she kind of understand why it was happening. At first she thought, it was the cause of Ares, and you realize that, that was part of it, but the rest of it, humans came up with on their own. And there are a lot of things she understand about America, or the customs of just other people beyond Paradise Island, which also brought some humor to it, because she was like, why do you have to do this? Why must you wear makeup? Why must you put on these fitting clothing? It's like nothing's free, and that was part of the whole hilarious parts of a movie.
Yes, definitely. Now, let's talk about 3 other parts of the movie. One, of course, are the fantastic action sequences.
Right.
They were just filmed perfectly. The choreographing of the fight scenes, the stop motion, special effects, CGI, everything blended so well that it just looked fluid and natural and terrific, and she looked wonderful kicking butt. She did. I mean, I haven't seen anyone look cooler in a movie doing fight scenes than I have seen Gal Gadot. It was just like, and we kept rewinding. We would get to the end, like, okay, let's see that again, and then we rewind it and look at it again.
Coupled with, like we mentioned, her theme, it came with a cinematic, pretty much a cinematic theme music. Right.
That was the next part. So so what did you like best about the fight scenes before we get to the music?
Pretty much they made everything look seamless. Because with other movies, whether it be superhero or others, sometimes they can have trouble when they do tracking shots, and you can tell when actors have to stop. They can't go as fast as usual because they gotta wait for the camera to catch up and then continue the fight, so they kind of do a stop and go thing. But here, where they use computer graphics or better editing or the tracking, they managed to blend everything together to look like one big fight scene over one shot, because she would move from place to place during most of these fight scenes, going to different buildings or different places on the land that require lots of different cameras, lots of different shots. But here it didn't look choppy at all.
No,
everything was
flowed.
Everything flowed so great that it all seemed in one big scene, and it was handled very well.
Yes, definitely. Now, as you mentioned, the awesome soundtrack.
Right. And of course, we love her theme for the movie, and they also have some very fitting music, not only for the time period the movie takes place, but just for any moments where it just quiets down a little bit, and you just hear some soft music or instruments, and they wouldn't have that doom 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 weird, goofy music that usually shows or movies have when there's supposed to be some levity in there and something's supposed to be humorous. They just kind of left it silent because if it's already funny by itself, you don't need that. It's like adding a laugh track to a movie where it's like, where did that come from? Because we've seen so many times where it's been so awkwardly done.
Right, and irritatingly done. And you're like, they could have just left that out. But as you said, this was the soundtrack was perfect. Everything as far as the music for the movie was great. And the theme, here's the thing about that theme. Yes, that is one wicked theme. But you gotta have that music with the visual of her doing the fighting.
Right.
And that's what makes it just fantastic, and it just makes it explode. And you just sit there, glued to your seat, eyes focused. You can't stop watching. You got this goofy grin the whole time, and you're almost cheering for her every time you see this scene. But together, apart, they're fantastic, but together they are just wow. I mean, just wonderful. Great job, DC. Great job.
Oh, another thing I want to mention.
Warner Brothers.
Well, both. Both of them are a joint effort to do these movies all together. And it seems like, before I get to the other part, with the DC movies, Marvel so far is king of cinematic universes right now. DC's attempting to do it, and so far they've had like a bit of a rocky start. Like Man of Steel is considered great, but then they get to Batman vs Superman, and regardless of your opinion, when it was first out, it wasn't received well. Although now people are kind of wondering, what were you complaining about? Like with Speed Racer syndrome, it's like, years later, it's like, what were you complaining about?
And by the way, we never complained about Batman versus Superman. We loved everything but the fight scene between them. And as a matter of fact, we watched it not once, but twice, but 3 times. While we had the rental. So we thought it was wonderful. So I'm glad that people are seeing what some of us saw in the beginning. This was a great movie. Don't listen to the critics. Don't find things wrong. They don't have anything to do with the movie itself. And if you can get past the fight scene where it got really, really violent, and there are no spoilers at this point, where Batman tries to kill Superman and vice versa. It's a great movie.
Because everybody, don't you say that name, Martha! It's like, okay, come on, you gotta not let that go.
But if you didn't like this movie for anything else, you should have been grateful for it because of the introduction of Wonder Woman. And she was absolutely the best part of the movie. She really was. It was a great movie, but the best part was not Ben Affleck, which I thought he was great as Bruce Wayne. Not too crazy about his Batman, but I love him as Bruce Wayne. And then, of course, Superman was perfect because he's just great as Superman. He's the best one since.
What's the one that played on that says Adam now?
Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, thank you.
He's the best since Christopher Reeve. And
they beg to differ.
But Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman was the best part.
And then, because you got Justice League, which was unfortunately a disappointment to some people because of the waiting so many years for it. It was okay, just not what we expected. And then, like I said, Wonder Woman was jumped. It was unlike anything they've done. Then Aquaman, same thing.
Yes, and we can't wait to review on podcast Aquaman. We are just excited and anticipating for that.
And of course, Shazam!
And we just read today that Aquaman has reached its first billion and is set to surpass all the DC movies that have been made,
right.
which is terrific, which means that we'll get more DC movies
right.
with the characters we love in them. And
right.
yes, I can't wait for Shazam.
Yes. Oh, okay, this is the last thing I was supposed to mention, because we ended up going about all the DC movies, which is fine, because, like, the Wonder Woman started, it's all one universe, so it's fine. The last thing I was going to mention is that if you've seen the animated Justice League series, or if you've read some of the later made Wonder Woman comics, is what drives Wonder Woman to go with Steve Trevor to America. Mm-hmm. Usually, it is by her own decision, but in here it kind of does point home on why she wants to do it, and why she kind of stands out from the other Amazons. Yes, she was trained. Yes, she has the weapons and lasso of truth and all, and she was taught the customs of the Amazons. Mm-hmm. But the thing was, even though he was a man, she still wanted to help them, because as you can tell with anybody on the outside, especially men, they were just like, they don't want to deal with them, they can handle it on their own, let them go, and that's it. But she felt sorry because all these innocent people were in danger and fighting, and it was senseless killing, and she couldn't let that stand by. Even though she was miles away from it, she still wanted to go and help them, and she still had that compassion that some of the other Amazons lacked for other people that weren't Amazons.
Exactly. Now, we know you've seen this movie, so let us know in the comments what was your favorite scene or scenes, and what you love about the choice of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman.
Right.
And if you're looking forward to 1984, and did you or did you not like Batman vs. Superman, why or why not?
Yeah, Super Why! Well, there's a show actually called Super Why, but it's for little kids, though, so don't watch that unless you're like 5.
Okay.
So, thank you so much for watching. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mama Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.
With Wonder Woman!
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Met her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket, give it to you later on in the form of a locket.